Hey, everybody. Christian Pedersen, joined by Dan Dickau. We are back for another edition of the Mailbag podcast that we do here at Gonzaga Nation. That's where we answer, or we all collectively ask Dan Dickau, our genius basketball resident mind, your guys' fan submitted questions that you got to us on social media at Fan Nation Zags on all the different platforms, or to Dan at Dan Dickau 21. And as while you're at it, you might as well subscribe to Gonzaga Nation wherever you get your podcasts. First one, Dan, is going international, and we've been talking about Coach Few the last couple of weeks. So we had some people asking, what was your international playing experience like, either for Team USA or for any international squads?
Well, I actually did have a chance to play for Team USA, so I got to represent our country back in college. I played in the World University Games. It was in 2001 in Beijing, and so the team was made up of, as it's called, the World University Games. You had to be a current college student at the time, or loosely enrolled in college classes. So myself, Juan Dixon, Lynn Greer, Andre Barrett, Chris Owens, Melvin Eli are a couple of the names that maybe some big time hoop heads would remember who those guys were as well. We were on the team. We went back to Beijing. And we actually were the first team, unfortunately, in that tournament to lose in about 20, 30 years from the United States. So we ended up losing in the semifinals to China in Beijing in an arena, in a stadium that was filled with about 15,000 screaming, rabid Chinese fans. And the reason it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, or it wasn't very fair, is the fact that, okay, so we're college students. The Chinese team had their whole team was made up of professional players. You were either playing professionally in China at the time or in the NBA at the time. So two of the players were actively playing in the NBA. That would have been Wang Zhizhi and Menk Batir. And the third was Yao Ming, who ended up 9 months later being the number one pick in the 2002 NBA draft. So we were college students. They were pros, and it was a close game. I remember clearly, I think we were down one with less than a minute left. And one of our players, Juan Dixon, I believe it was, drove the lane, shot a floater. Yao Ming came over from the weak side and goaltended it, right? In international play, if the ball hits the rim and the ball's rolling on the rim, you can knock it off. That's fine. But it's same as far as if the ball hasn't hit the rim and the shot is on its downward trajectory, you can't touch it. Well, Yao Ming goaltended the shot on its downward trajectory. Officials didn't call it. We ended up losing the game. We ended up winning third place a couple days later, but that was my experience playing for Team USA. Now, fast forward a few years later, the Polish national team wanted me to play for them in the FIBA Eurobasket. And this would have been, I believe, in 2008 or 2009. I was playing with the Clippers at the time. They flew out a delegation at least twice to come meet with myself and my wife and talk to my agent and kind of see what it would take for me to play for Poland in the Eurobasket. Now I have Polish heritage. I've got Polish, connections. I believe my great grandparents on my father's side. And so it would have been easy to get a passport because I didn't play at the highest level for Team USA. You can go play for another country if you get dual citizenship. Now, right now, that's something you see a lot of in the World Cup. You got guys that are American that are playing for other countries because they got dual citizenship. But that was an opportunity for me. Unfortunately, I didn't go forward with it because I didn't have a contract after that season. Like I mentioned, I was playing for the Clippers. I didn't have a contract after that for the next season, so I wasn't comfortable not playing in Eurobasket without a contract. So looking back, maybe I should have done it, but it would have been about a 2.5 month commitment. Didn't know where my contract status lied leading up to it the next year. So that would have been fun, but I didn't take advantage of playing for Poland.
Just think we could all be calling you the pierogi right now.
You never know.
That could be your nickname at this point. And also, I just want to point out Dan, who we were talking to, was a first round draft pick, 28th overall, meaning that that year there was only 27 better basketball players available in the entire world for people to pick. And Dan is looking at and telling you that the gap, though, between being the 28th pick and being the first pick overall is noticeable, and that Yao Ming is bad memories. And a viewer that asked that question, shame on you for bringing up Dan.
Well, I got a great Yao Ming story for another day. So, if you're listening to this and you want to send a mailbag question in, ask about Yao Ming and his restaurant in Houston. The story is unbelievable.
I can't even wait. You already one up me with what I think is one of the funniest show moments in history between us, when you hit me with I thought I made a great Udonis Haslem point. You're like, let me tell you a Udonis Haslem story. So I'm not even going to go there. I absolutely am ready for that podcast. Next question we got is, why is Braden Huff such a mystery?
Well, it's because he redshirted a season ago. And, it's one of those things where years ago, it was normal for players to redshirt, and you would kind of have this mystery guy the very next year appear, and many times, hopefully, he was an impact player. Sometimes he wasn't an impact player. Now, with the amount of information that's typically out there on guys, there's not a whole lot of mysteries about players. But you're right in the regards that Braden Huff does still seem like a mystery. I've been at a number of practices over the last year, and I can say this: I think he's talented. I think he's, he brings a little bit of a curveball element, not the way that I've described Drew Timme, but in the way that he's a lefty. I think all lefties, especially when you put them in the post, have a unique challenge for defenders to guard. I think athletically he's improved since the time he stepped on campus, but he's still by no stretch, he's still not, a drop dead, wow, he's an athlete kind of player. He's kind of one of those guys who's cerebral, who's skilled. I think he's a little bit bigger and taller than maybe initially he was advertised as. But I know the staff has high hopes for him. And with the fact that, Drew Timme's gone, there's minutes available, with the fact that Caden Perry has announced that he's no longer going to try to play college basketball. I think there's an opportunity right there for him. He's got to show that, he's able to pick up defensive schemes and rotations and keep guys in front. I think he's got to be able to prove that he can guard and pick and roll situations. On the offensive end of the floor, I think, again, he's lefty, so he's got that advantage. I think he's creative. When I've watched him in shooting drills, he's got a nice touch, but by no means would I say he's a knockdown, step out big. But I think he's got a chance to play some minutes this year.
Next question we got, and a reminder, if anyone wants to submit questions, you can find us at Fan Nation Zags on all your social media. You can also get this podcast straight to your phone every single time a new one drops by searching and subscribing to Gonzaga Nation, wherever you get your podcasts. What's going on with the ESPN Plus deal? Can you explain that to the viewers?
A lot was made about this ESPN Plus deal, and I get it. ESPN is the name in college sports and just sports in general that a lot of people gravitate to and flock to. But really, the only change that it makes for Gonzaga fans are the ones that live outside of the region that gets the KHQ and root sports games. So, if you were a Gonzaga fan living in Illinois or living in on the East Coast, you probably couldn't get those regional games unless you got creative, with your TV provider services, or if you were willing and you could figure out how to get the WCC Sports website to work and stream properly. I've had a number of people ask me, hey, what goes on with it? And I'm like, I have no idea. That's well out of my, job description.
I like that just because you work in media, you somehow know the coding on the back end of the WCC website.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. So I think what this does is it allows, anybody to buy an ESPN Plus membership and have access to all those games, through the ESPN platform, their website. So it should be a lot easier. We actually had an interview last week with WCC Commissioner Stu Jackson, and we talked about the ESPN Plus deal and what it meant. And he was really excited about it because it gets them on a number of different platforms, streaming and outside of the normal just net TV network box. So he's excited about it. So he explains it in much more detail. So if you want to hear kind of the nuts and bolts and how it's going to impact some of the other sports and other schools, that'll be a great podcast to listen to as well.
And I don't think that the studio that we've been building is completely under wraps, because our last week that we connected, you were in there and you showed off a little bit of it. So I'm apologize to our wonderful, absolute saint of a content coordinator creator who is our boss. If I'm spilling the beans here, but that studio is fire. Absolutely amazing. You guys are going to love the shows that Dan is producing in there. It is going to be such a jump, like a quantum leap forward. Absolutely, you guys are going to be ready. And that's a great one to kick it off with. I know you guys have been doing some other ones, but that Stu Jackson was going to be a lot of fun. Last question we got is...
Yeah, on that, I'll just say we've recorded a couple virtual in the studio, but then we've also recorded it in person with Greg Heister that'll be releasing soon. We've got 3 Gonzaga players coming in later this week. So those will release later on down the road in the fall. So our content game is definitely picking up.
You smell that, America? Dan Dickau's cooking with gas finally. That man has got himself a beautiful studio. It makes his hair even look good, which I know you guys like to clown on Dan for that sometimes. Look at that. Perfectly coiffed back there. Feathered and lethal is Dan Dickau today. Last question we got for you, Dan, is Marcus Adams to BYU. What the hell is that?
I don't know. I think it's one of those things, and I touched on it on a podcast the other day, is like, hey, look, there's something going on that we don't know. You go to Kansas, a blue blood, and it's not right for you. Are you scared of competition for minutes? I don't know. And he ups and leaves. He commits to Gonzaga. He's only committed to Gonzaga or signed with Gonzaga for about a month. Then things may not be what he wants as far as thinking how the minutes are going to go, and he up and leaves again. So, it is what it is these days. Players are around this type of approach now more than ever, because of that's the AAU basketball world. That's even the high school basketball world now. So it's not a big deal, unfortunately, to kids these days to up and leave so quickly and so many times in such a short time frame. But you know what? He's at BYU. Best of luck to him. And we'll see if Mark Pope can get his game right.
You could have answered that a lot less politely, but a lot more succinctly by saying, don't know, don't care. He's not our problem anymore. Wish you well. Don't let the door hit you on the way out, kid. Maybe I'm just harsh for that. That's all that we got in this week's mailbag edition. Somebody please hop on some social media and ask Dan about Yao Ming. Just if I need to do it, Dan, I'll tweet at you. Yao Ming ? Because I want to hear that question. So make sure you guys tune in to the next Gonzaga Nation by searching and subscribing, like we said, to Gonzaga Nation, wherever you get your podcasts, or Fan Nation Zags on all the social media. Talk to you guys soon.